Welcome to the Awakening Podcast. You can find all our episodes on awakeningpodcast.org. My guest is the author of Noble Real Estate, and he's probably shocked that I have it here and I have a signed copy from you. And it's actually a fantastic book. And you were featured at the NYC Real Estate Expo. Also, your daily dose of Noble, your daily guide to making money with alternative investments. I have that as well, but I don't know where I put it, but it's somewhere in the house. And has written many articles. Oh, you've both them there, yeah. Brilliant, excellent, yeah. So those watching on Spotify, BitChute, YouTube, and Rumble, you'll actually see the books that's as Syd was holding up. You're a popular speaker who has made presentations to Eyes on the Future, Rochester, New York. Syd Chase Sr. is the founder and president of the Syd Chase Limited Liability Company, LLC, a consultant for GLG and the NYC Network Group, Incorporated, and a 15-year veteran of the U.S. Army. Sydney has spoken at real estate clubs throughout the East Coast and Australia, Sweden, among others, and has been interviewed on numerous radio programs, national and international. And I've actually broke bread with him, and I class him as a good friend. You're currently, you're 15 years in South Carolina, but you're originally kind of New York region. Please welcome Syd Chase.
Yeah, so I'm originally from north of Syracuse, New York. I've been here in the Myrtle Beach, South Carolina area for about 14 years now. Predominantly, we build custom homes here. One of the companies that we own, we build custom homes here at the beach. And gosh, I think we've won 22 or 23 Best Home Builder awards now. So we're doing real well. The market's real strong here, and it's doing well, and we enjoy it. We enjoy building homes for other people.
Excellent. Look, we're going to touch on a lot of things today. So those listening, we're going to touch on kind of alternative investments, but also on farming, because you got into that. But I suppose, let's get to know you a little bit more. 15 years in the Army, how did you get into that? Is it something you wanted, or how did that all come about?
Yeah, so they kicked me out of school during court one night when I was in court in front of the judge, and he gave me an option, so this is back in the early 80s. He said, you can either, go down this path of criminalization and or join the Army. And so I got forced into joining the Army. I'm just kidding, folks. I'm just kidding. So actually, my father was a judge. He was a police officer before that. Then he became a judge. So I couldn't get away with anything. If I did anything wrong, it got back to my father before I could even get home. But no, I always wanted as a young kid to become a soldier. And so that's what I did. I joined the military in 1981. I didn't even finish my last year of school. I was not the perfect student. So I got a GED equivalent. I scored high enough on that. New York State ended up giving me a high school diploma, and I joined the military. I did a quick 7-year stint in a airborne unit, 82nd Airborne Unit, and a couple of mechanized units. And I was a few different places around, not just here in the United States, but also overseas. And then I was out for 12 years. And during that 12-year period hiatus from the military, I started building my real estate business, my flipping business, a few other businesses that I started along with my wife, Julie. And then about 30 days after September 11th, we all remember that date, I volunteered to go back in. And they came looking for me, but I did volunteer to come back in. They needed my specialty. And so I spent another 8 years in after that. And while I was gone, Julie ran the business and started continuing to flipping homes. And we had a pool business and a few other things going on, but she did a great job. And I'm not sure why she even asked me to come back, because she realized that she didn't need me to do it. It must have been my good looks or something, or my personality, or, my comedian side of myself. I'm not sure, but I got lucky and she took me back.
So, when you're away that long, how is this, to maintain a relationship? And it must be very difficult, that you're traveling, you're going abroad and everything when you're in the military.
Yeah, so it was, so the first time I was in, I was always stationed somewhere. right? So I was there for 1 year, 3 years, whatever. The second time, though, because of what was going on in the world, I was literally all over the place. I was an instructor, and a demo instructor, and PsyOps instructor, and I did a few other things. But so they had me literally all over the place. I was never in one place very long. Now, I had a home base, right? A home base in Rochester, New York. But I was all over the place. And every chance I got, I would try to get home, or Julie would try to come and see me. And, there was times when I was back home for a few months at a time, or a couple of months or something. But, you've met Julie, Roy, and dude, she's amazing. And it was all her, man. So she picked up the basketball and started playing the game and did a really good job. And she took care of all the kids. And we have 5 boys, and all of them aren't from Julie, but we had custody of all 5 boys at one time. And, and she just did an amazing job. So it wasn't because of me, it was more because of her.
Beautiful. You're an extremely successful businessman. And what I've seen from some, not all obviously, but some people that have a military background, they're extremely systemized. And you put down your success from your military training.
Oh, exactly. Yeah. So it's still today. So I'm 60 years old. I've been out for a long time now, but I still color code all my shirts. I still roll and fold my socks. And I do all of that stuff for organization, for time, and that kind of stuff. And I use that in my investments. I use it in my business that I run, in my multiple businesses that we run every day, and even on the farm. And our latest adventure is everything. It just saves so much time when you get organized and you know where things are all the time, and you take the time to be, I don't want to say overly clean, but just organized, so that when you go, I need something, you know exactly where it is. And in the system, I have a system, and I don't like my systems getting broken, because it throws me a little bit out of whack, because then I'm all over the place. And when you get all over the place, you then lose sight on what you're doing, and that's where mistakes can happen.
So, I've met Julie. She's a beautiful, beautiful woman, and obviously you're rock, but you've worked with her, and not everyone can do that. How did you make it that you're able to work together and have such a great relationship?
Yeah. So, she's about 10 years younger than I am. So I had the opportunity to train her, and, I'm just kidding, folks. I'm just kidding. She's probably in there listening, going, yeah.
You just see the frying pan now slapped off your head.
There's going to be a frying pan sitting outside my office door here waiting for me. And the next show, I'll have a big bump on my head. But no, she was just willing to learn and to be a part of something that was active. And you know me very well. I don't sit down and rest very often, and there's always something going on, and we're always doing something, and we're always going someplace. But I think the biggest thing is the communications, between whether it's good communication or bad communication. I think that made a huge difference in our relationship. She had the same goals that I had. She wanted to be a part of what I was creating, because I started it a little bit before I met her, but not a whole lot before. But she was just anxious to learn and jump right in and get going. And I think that makes a huge, huge difference.
So, let's kind of start at the real estate, because you've got so much experience in that, and I suppose let's look at how do you know the trends, because at the moment the world has kind of changed a bit, and I'm not sure as in the States, but you've the likes of Blackrock and everything coming in, buying a load of stuff. They ruined the market in Ireland, so people now they're in their 40s and they're still living at home. And is it the same in the States? Have they actually affected the market?
They have. So I'll specifically talk about, I know lots of different markets in the U.S., but I'll specifically talk about the Myrtle Beach, South Carolina market where I'm at. And I would say that I have a better thumb on things here than I do anywhere else. And so it's not just BlackRock. You got BlackRock, you got JP Morgan, you got Bank of America, and a lot of PDCs companies. And you guys can look up what PDCs are, but a lot of these companies are coming in, and that's what's buying up all the houses right now. So there's not a lot of houses on the market because these guys are coming in and buying them, and they're not selling them. They're leasing them long term. So there's probably, I could think of about 12 new developments that you cannot buy the house. And I'm talking hundreds of homes in each development, and they're for lease only. And I think some of that has to do with they know what's coming. We all know what's coming. If you're paying attention to the markets at all, and you know where we are in the bull run, right? You know something's coming. I don't know when it's coming, but I know it's coming, and it could be here within a year. But I think they're being prepared for that, and I'll just stick this in here, that take a look at what Warren Buffett's been doing over the last few months. He's selling everything. He's selling all his stock. He's building cash. And there's a reason for that, folks. There is a reason for it. And maybe you should be doing the same thing. I know I am.
And like in Ireland, like they basically doubled the rents. So when I was working in one part of Ireland, it was Limerick, like you could rent a house for like €800, say. And now it's a room for that. Like it's gone through the roof, but they own so much of it. And like, I remember even when I went through my kind of crash with all my property thing, it used to annoy me that the banks were buying all this stuff and then leasing Class A offices at half the price of what I was getting. Then I lost all my tenants on my commercial property. So
Correct.
They should be lenders. Not, it's like they're manipulating the market. Like you say, they're controlling everything.
They are. It's happening everywhere. And same thing here. Exactly the same thing. That's what they're doing. And, this was said a long time ago. A lot of people like Jeff Bezos and Amazon, and there's a lot of people that don't like Amazon. But one thing, Amazon is great for what it is, right? But one thing that caught me a long time ago, and I reposted this a while back, but on my Facebook page, which is Syd Chase. And, in one of his early speeches, he was speaking, and he said, we have a client that wanted to pay us, and they wanted to pay us in cash. We don't like cash. We don't want cash payments. They don't want that. So that ought to tell you something right there in a nutshell.
So with the construction then, I mean, you've done developments and everything. And I suppose because you're very conscious and you make sure you deliver and look after your investors and everything. But Ireland, I've seen people all over the world that there's so many cowboys in the construction field. And people, whether they're using them for interior design or actually building something. And what happens is you have companies and they're company A, and then when they come after them, if it goes to court, they just close and then they open company B in the morning. And so for an international audience, how would you recommend that they actually find a contractor? Because I've heard of so many horror stories of people getting caught, because I know you do it right. And I know you actually build beautiful homes.
Thank you. Yeah, so what we're talking about there is our investors from all over the world. They invest with us on our real estate projects. And you got to, even when I'm talking to somebody, I tell them, look, I'm interviewing you as much as you're interviewing me, right? So that's the first thing. You need to interview them, talk to other people that invested with them, and not somebody that just invested the last couple of months. Somebody I have investors that's been with me for, I don't know, Roy, how long have we known each other? 15 years or more now?
I was actually looking at the book, and this book I read it in 2010.
20. Okay, so
that's 14 years, like that book alone. So we know each other probably 15 years, maybe more. Yeah,
exactly. Yep. So, but you want to find somebody that has investors that's been with them a long time, right? you need to interview that person. You need to see if other investors know that person as well. And what I mean by that is not the investor who's putting in the money, but somebody that's in the same field that's worked with them. Or even maybe just call somebody like me. I do a free consultation and say, hey, I'm in Ireland, or I'm in Loads, or I'm wherever I'm at. Do you know this person? I probably don't know them personally, but I know ways that you can help you find the right person.
So when you're kind of diversifying, because some people put a certain percentage towards the real estate, and I know that, you've covered a lot of stuff on silver, gold, and things like that. What's your kind of recommendations for max that you put into a certain portfolio, or percentage that you'd actually in one industry? So
yeah. So when I'm investing into a new project, like say the farm, for example, the farm investments that we're doing now, I never risk more. And when I say this, it's not on my total assets, it's on my cash assets, right? So whatever I have sitting in cash, I don't ever risk more than 20% of that cash ever, usually. Now, that might be higher if you have less cash sitting around. It depends, right? But for like gold and silver, the norm on gold and silver is 5% or less. I'm much higher than that, because I had the gold chart up here. Gold's pushing back across 2,500. I think we can hit 3,000 possibly. So I've been in gold and silver for pretty much all my life. I've been buying and selling it, and I also keep it as a prepping tool. But I'm probably 25% over the last few years. I've been working up to that. So I started buying silver this time around at about $14 an ounce. And then I started buying gold, if I remember correctly, I want to say it was around $1,100, so we're talking a few years ago. But when I buy gold and silver, I'm the long baller, right? So I'm holding that for the long term. So I buy those two things for prepping. I buy those two things for trading daily, and I buy those for long term. And there's different vehicles that you can do and you should do to use to do all of those. And, a shameless plug, I guess, is that if you go and you purchase this book, it literally tells you every chapter, every alternative investment that I've ever been involved in will tell you exactly where to go and how to do it and who to talk to. And it'll tell you literally legit places to buy and sell.
And do you recommend people hold physical gold and silver, or actually? Yeah,
I do. Yeah. So again, that's what I call the prepper mindset, right? So if you believe that your government or the world or whatever, is going to have what we call an old shit moment kind of thing, right? Then you should have some type of gold and silver on your person, meaning in somewhere in your house that you can get to it, not in a bank deposit box or anything like that, or not online. You should physically have some. How much should you have? That depends on your income, your family, how much do you need, so on and so forth. And it should be broken down into like little BB pellets that you can trade all the way up to maybe 100-ounce bar or something, right? Or the cheapest way to do it is it's expensive, but go buy a 1,000-ounce bar of silver, right? And then turn around and melt that down yourself into the ounces and grams that you're looking for to trade. That's the cheapest way to get silver right now. And gold. Gold would be what, $250,000 for 1,000 ounce or something like that. It's early, so my math might be off a little bit, but it's expensive. So real estate wise, in the beginning, I was probably 50%, 60%. I think that was a mistake, because I realized after a while I was cash poor and paper rich. Right. So I think I should have done a better job at balancing that out and maybe drop that down to like maybe 35% or maybe even less than that. And then in the stock market, you should have multiple different portfolios, not just a 401k, a Roth IRA, or, I know Canada and other countries, they have, what are they called over there for you guys? There's some type of fund. It's what's Canada? Canada's got so here in the United States, we put money into our Social Security and we run our own portfolios. But in Canada and other countries, the country itself actually has
a pension
a retirement, a pension program like Australia does and things like that. So you need to play a part of all of those things, right? No matter what country you're in, but you also need to have some private portfolios, right? Your own. Now, whether you want to run them or you want somebody else to run them and manage them, that it doesn't really matter too much in the beginning. But you should have all of those. Cash is always king. You know me, I preach cash is king all the time, right? You always want to make sure you have cash. I probably, right now I've been laying out a lot of cash because of the farm, but normally I try to keep close to 30-40% cash. Yeah.
Because I suppose for those that wouldn't be diversifying and everything, and I mean, for me at one stage, it was all real estate. And it's like when you need money, because there's always curveballs or you see a fantastic offer. Unless you do a fire sale and sell it at 90% or 80% of its value, it's very hard. And it takes so much time for paperwork and everything, as opposed to the other investments like gold. You can go straight away and get your cash if you need it.
Exactly. Yep. And I know people are out there thinking about, well, I could get rental and I'm getting my cash from my rental. Yeah, well, technically you shouldn't be using your cash that you're getting on your rentals for at least 3 to 5 years. You should be taking that for 3 to 5 years and doing nothing but putting that money away and getting ahead of yourself on the property, because if something does happen, you're going to need that money to fall back on, right? Because if you don't do that, I'm one that did that, so this is from experience, right? If you don't do that, where is that money coming from? It's going to come from a fire sale, like Roy just mentioned. It's going to come from your credit cards, maxing them out to get the cash, and then you're paying what, 18%, 19%, 24%, or it's going to come out of your paycheck. And start taking money away from your wife or your spouse, and tell them that it's going to an investment that you're losing on because you didn't prepare correctly. That's not going to go over well either, right? So now you got a whole relationship stress thing going on there. You got to kind of plan these things out, and nothing's perfect, right? But you got to adjust, like we learned in the military, right? Adjust fire, right? We're always adjusting our fire. We're always moving with the trend and with what's going on. You just got to be prepared.
So, like tax optimization, and because I know with the real estate, there's different things that you can do to roll it over, and
yeah, so there is, and so I'll give you one example, right? I'll give you an example of what we've done in the past. Right now, it's a little bit harder to do, but you can still do it. So there's basically I'll give you 2 little short tips that we use to generate cash, right? So I had cash. I would go buy a piece of property with cash. Right. And so I'm going to talk about Carolina Avenue in Clyde, New York. I went and bought that from the bank in a foreclosure. So this was back in, this is back in 90. Holy smokes, Sid. Damn, I just dated myself, right? So this was back in 93 or 5 or something like that. So it was a foreclosure. It'd been on the market a long time. And, I'm just realizing how old I am. Holy smokes. So anyways, I bought the house. It'd been on the market a while. And if I remember correctly, I paid like $12,500 for this house. I put in about $2,000 or $3,000 worth of repair work. I believe this story is in my first book. And so prior to doing that, though, folks, what I did was I went to an appraiser, an outside appraiser, and I said, hey, I'm going to buy this house. I'm going to do this work. This is what it's going to look like when I'm done. What do you think I can get for this house to sell it, right? You should be doing that anyways if you're flipping homes, right? But I was doing it for another reason as well. And when they told me that, you could probably get around $75,000 for the property. So now I know that my local bank is giving me 85% loan to value. So I went and bought the house, paid for it, did all the work into it. And then I went back to my banker and I said, hey, and you got to have decent credit for this, guys, or at least good credit. And I went back to the banker and I said, hey, I got this property. This is what I did to it. What will you give me? And I already had all this in my head, right? But what will you give me for it? And oh, by the way, I've already got a contract on it for a lease to own. So now they turned around and gave me, if I remember correctly, they gave me like $65,000 or $68,000 in cash, right? So I paid myself back the initial amount of money, went out and did another house. I took the rest of that money, I put it into another investment, and then half of that money I put into my cash account, right? I've always had a cash account. You should always have a cash account, right? And especially right now when cash accounts are paying 4.75, 4.25, you should be banking cash every month, right? And you want that cash laying around because of the times when a deal comes along. Nothing makes you more mad than, oh man, look at that deal, or that stock is so cheap, or silver is so cheap, or gold is so cheap, or this oil project is so cheap. Oh man, I could have bought 10 heads of cattle last month 2 years ago for $600, and now they're selling for $3,000, right? So this is why you need to have cash on hand. And while it's sitting there, yes, most people will tell you, well, it's just wasting your money. You're not making any money on it, but you will make money on it. And that's the key, right? You have to have patience, right? Okay, so that's one way to bring in the cash flow for you if you're doing real estate. And the second way is if you're trying to build a portfolio of either single family homes, duplexes, threeplexes, or quads, which is what I did. I never really got into the commercial side of things. It just wasn't my cup of tea, and there wasn't very many of those available in my area, right? So if you're building that, put a couple of flip houses in there at the same time, right? If you got the cash, or partner up with somebody or whatever you need to do, right? And do a couple of flip houses. So while I was building my portfolio of houses and apartment complexes and so on and so forth, right, I was also flipping houses at the same time and selling those outwardly, right? Yes, I had to pay more income tax, but I didn't really care. Just pay the damn bill and keep the rest of your money and move on, right? So that's what was helping fund my portfolio purchasing. And I also had a business that I had, right? Plus some of that time I was in the military. So what am I getting at there, folks? One, yes, I'm a crazy serial entrepreneur, right? But I'm also building streams of income. I didn't have just one. I just mentioned to you right there, I had four different separate streams of income. And your goal is to get up to about 7 before you hit retirement. And if you think about that, just take it a second, maybe pause the podcast and think about that. So you got a job, and you're building 7 other streams of income over 10 years, 15 years, or 20 years, whatever that may be. And at the time, at the end, those 7 streams of income, right, are going to be making you more money than your job is when you go to retirement. So instead of making sure you walk around the house turning the lights off and the water doesn't drip because you need to save money, you're not worrying about it because you're making more money now than you were when you're at your job.
Well, excellent. I think it was yourself when you were doing the houses that you built, that they were catering for when people were aging, that you could make adjustments. Is that correct?
So that's what we're doing here. We've been doing that here in Myrtle Beach for about roughly 10 years. So obviously I'm a baby boomer, right? So I'm in the last year of the baby boomers. I was born in 1964, right? So us baby boomers are have been in the process of retiring out, right? So one of the ideas I got thinking about with that, and that was generated from some health issues that I had a few years ago, right? That as I'm building these new houses, we should make it so that the house will progress with the person, right? So as you get older, you need certain things in the house to make it easier for you to live. So we built one of the first what they call life houses, life transition houses, in Horry County in South Carolina. And it's a lot to get into. That's a whole podcast within itself.
No, definitely. But I mean, like, I had not heard of that before. Has that become kind of more popular?
Yeah, well, in some of the other builders, when I say that, I'm not talking about, Lennar, DR Horton, or Mongo, or whatever all those other guys' names are, Pulteney, and so on. Those guys don't do it. They don't care, right? They're just going to build the cheapest house, the shittiest house they can, and be done with it, right? So the people who are doing that, there's probably about 3 or 4 of us full custom builders in Myrtle Beach doing that. But and again, I don't know for sure, but I would probably say that I'm doing it more than anybody else is. And what I do, how I do that is if I'm building a spec home, right? And you know about this. So if I'm doing a spec home and I reach out to my investors and I go, hey guys, I found a piece of property. We're going to build this home. I give them all the details, all the finance. They understand everything of the project. They decide whether they want to invest or not invest. And then during that process, I'm telling them that this house is going to have that. We're going to put in the extra wide doors now. We're going to put in the shower stall, and behind the shower is going to be, we don't need an arm bar now, but we may need one later in life. So behind the tile is going to be placements for later on, and we can just pop those tiles off and put an armrest in there, and so on and so forth, in the cabinets and all the other things that you can do, right? No steps in the house later on, and so on and so forth. And so all of that is laid out in up front, basically.
But I think it's a fantastic, because, when people are if they know this is our dream house, it's a fantastic way to plan. And I don't think it's happening around the rest of the world. Like, I think all houses should be incorporating that.
Right. No, they should be. They should at least offer that on the table, right? Because most people, you get somebody who goes, so we get a lot of these folks, right? So they're in the Northeast corridor, which is, Pennsylvania, New York City, Connecticut, Delaware, Rhode Island, Massachusetts, New Hampshire, all of those places, right? And their houses up there are twice as expensive as our houses, right? So they've lived in those houses. We're talking about the baby boomer, right, generation. They've lived in those houses most of their lives. Their houses are most likely already paid off, right? And so now they're sitting on this huge nest of cash. They sell those houses for, most of those areas are going to be $500,000, $750,000, even $1 million. Those houses will sell for. So they're selling these houses, and now they're sitting on all this cash. So what they're doing is coming down here, finding a custom builder like me, and I'm saying to them as they come to me and go, I want this and I want that. And I'm like, well, is this going to be your last home? I know that's a hard subject to think about, but let's go through that and think about what can we do to this house so this house progresses with you for a certain period of time, right? And what that, it's one, it's me thinking and caring about other people, and number 2, it's obviously a money thing, to be honest with you. It is. It's good business is how I should say that.
And even if a person wasn't, I think they should kind of think about it, because the resale has a better chance of buying it when they know that it's already incorporated, that they can actually modify it a lot easier.
Yeah, that is correct. Yep.
So just curious, have you dabbled in the crypto world?
So I'm not sold on crypto. I do believe it's going to be something to do with currency over time, but until there's full regulations, I'm not going to put in a lot of money into it. So I do have some. I'm going to be very transparent. Roy knows I'm a very transparent person. So I'm just going to be honest with you, is I've never once bought a dime of any type of crypto at all, or even traded it. So you ask, how do you have something? Well, I have some because of my affiliates, and that's how they pay me. They pay me in crypto. That's how I have it. Do I think there's a place for it in your portfolio? I do. do I think you should have more than, not, or I think you should not have more than 3 to 5% right now. So like in the old days, no fund manager, no financial advisor would say to you, go out and do 10% of gold. It was always 3 to 5%, right? There's a few reasons why they do that, but the biggest reason is they don't make enough money off of it. But anyways, I realized a long time ago that gold and silver should be at least 10%, if not more, than my portfolio. And now, over the last 10 years, it's even more than that. And thank God I did it, because we've been rolling. And but no, not with crypto, not so much.
So let's talk about your kind of farming journey. And I mean, you showed me around on the camera the last time we spoke, and it was incredible. So how you decided, from your career and everything, how did this all come about?
Yeah. So let's be transparent one more time, right? And say that I grew up, right? My second part of my childhood, I grew up on first a 300-acre farm, and then my dad bought another 300. So I think the total was about 600 acres. And so I spent probably about 4 years before I left for the military farming. So I dealt with pigs mostly, cows mostly, and apple and pear trees. Okay. So, and then at one time with an ex-wife that I had, I had a 92-acre farm of my own, and we did, at that point, we did goats and pigs. So the reason I'm saying this to you folks is that I have some experience, right? So I just didn't jump into it, right? One of these days, either on my own show, which is hopefully coming up here pretty soon, or I will do it on Roy's show, I will talk about the one business that I invested in that was a total nightmare, like total 2 years of just a nightmare. It was terrible. And the reason it was terrible is because I went in not knowing a darn thing about it. And I'll get back to the farming, a darn thing about it, relying on my sister and her husband, who had been in the business for many, 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 many years. Like I'm talking 15 or 20 years, and yada, yada, yada. And that didn't go well. So that's another show in itself. That's a lot of negative there. But anyway, so back to the farming.
But it's actually a very good point, because I've done it myself. Like, I studied construction and everything, so the real estate and stuff was good, but I put all my eggs in one basket. But I've got into a load of different businesses. But I did a food truck once. Just thought, hey, this sounds like, I hadn't a clue what I was doing. I ended up losing a lot of money. And it's like, kind of know your skill set, know what you're doing, and kind of even read a load before you start throwing all your money into it, and surround yourself with the right people. Because sometimes you think, this sounds good, and it's not as easy as
right. And I haven't forgot about the farm thing yet, but one of the things we do here with our investors, if we don't take a lot of new investors on anymore, but when we do bring a new investor in, I will not allow him or her to fully invest into any project that we're doing. I'll tell them, I want you to come in with $10,000 or $5,000 or something like that to get your feet wet, right? And then over time, and you see the process and see how long things take and how it all works, right? Then if you feel comfortable, then you keep rolling those winnings back over and adding to them, right? That's how we do it, right? So now if you're a seasoned investor, like you, Roy, it's different. I've known you, but let's go back, 13 years and you come to me and you go, hey, I want to invest $30,000 with you. And any other investor would go, hell to the yes, we're taking your money, right? I would say, what's your background? What do you know about real estate? What do you know about spec homes? How many other investments are you doing? Where I need to know your financial status, right? Not just me. What I'm telling you folks that are listening is, if you're going to invest with somebody, they need to know your financial status, right? And they should be somewhat responsible for the investments that you're about to make with them, right? So If you got $30,000, if you go up to them and say, if Roy came up to me and goes, I have $30,000 and I want to invest all of it. And I'm like, no, you're not. Not with me. You're not. How about 10 or 15 of it? That's okay. But, use that as a guide when you're talking to other investors, right? People that you may want to invest with. Or even if you're an investor and you're looking for money, keep that in mind as well, right? Because that goes a long way with people. All right, so back to the farming.
And just on that, because I know we look at
we're all over.
Because I've done a lot of syndicates, and the worst thing you can do is have somebody put their money in, and it's their living money, and they depend on this working out, because they're the ones that will be contacting you and annoying you and spending 90% of your time, and they might be the smallest investor. So it's like, even for your own peace of mind, not to be taking the investment when you know they shouldn't be investing.
Exactly. So what happens with me, folks, we're not forgetting about the farm. I promise you we're not, right? But every year I'll cut about 5 or 10% of my investors. I just get rid of them. I don't care, right? And I'm not going to tell you why I get rid of them, but there's little things along the way in that year that if they trigger those things, right, then I know that they're not a fit for me, right? So I will get rid of them. Nope, no harm, no foul. They get their money back, the whole 9 yards, right? But yeah.
It's strange. I've done that a few times where I call it firing the client. And you will never regret it. It's the best thing you do, because it's like you've just got your watch back. You've just got so much time.
Exactly. Yeah. If you call me more than twice in one day, that's a trigger. No, I'm just kidding. But if you're new, I can understand the questions. I do. And as long as you're respectful to them, I'm fine with that. But there's other things along the way. And the biggest thing is, like you said, if they're putting in the whole 30 grand and that's all they got, and then all of a sudden, who knows what's going on? The wife says, I'm leaving you, or the kid gets sick, or I don't know, whatever, right? The first thing they're going to go to is you and me and say, I need all my $30,000 back. And then I say, no, go look at the contract that you wrote. That money's not optionable for 1 year. And at the end of that year, I get to make a decision whether I can afford to give it back to you. And what I mean by that is, can I afford to give it back to him personally? Most likely, yes. But that's not the key, folks. In the contract, any investor that you're going to deal with, what's going to be in there is that if you call in your $30,000, right? First of all, most investors are going to lock that thing up for a year or more, depending on the project length, right? Okay. So when you give a 30-day notice to recall your $30,000, I have a choice, or whoever has a choice to go, yes, I can afford to give that back to you because it's not going to harm the fund. It's not going to harm the investment, right? But if the investment happens to be low at that point, I'm not going to give you your $30,000 back and risk my investment, because I'm not risking it with you. I'm risking it with the other 5 people that are in it as well, right? And my duty is to take care of them just as much as I am to take care of you. So my true goal would be, okay, what else? Sit down and tell me what your problem is, and let's figure out maybe other ways that we can get done what you need to have done. So, all right. So what was the farming question again? Because we went so far out left field.
I mean, you've mentioned, that you actually have experience, so you kind of delved into that. So I suppose, because you've realized this is a kind of good investment for you as well. So you might kind of claim what you've got and how it's working out for you.
Yeah. So back when COVID hit, right? We all remember COVID, probably just as well as we remember September 11th and World War II and everything else like that, right? Big events. So after we came, everybody knows halfway through COVID or whatever, the light bulb went out in your head, right? Not went out, but went on. Mine also did. And what I realized is that we couldn't get food. Food was more expensive, and all of these things, right? And I even posted pictures on my Instagram and so on and so forth about stores not taking cash. We're out of cash. We don't have cash. We're not giving you cash. We don't want cash, right? All of these things were happening, right? And so as we started coming back out of that, I said to myself, I think there's going to be a run on farms, on land, on homesteaders. And these folks are going to want this 5 acres, and they're going to want a house that's not big. They're going to want smaller houses because they're going to spend their money on doing farming and bringing in animals and needing barns and all of this stuff. So we started moving our real estate, our home construction business and other things that we do kind of towards, to cater towards those people, right? A little niche that I think that we have found. But moving forward, that is also that the people who don't want that change or are in that rat race, right? So I got to live in Myrtle Beach City. I need to live in Scranton, Pennsylvania, or I need to live in Philadelphia because that's where my job is, right? So they can't have pigs and cows and chickens and all of that stuff, right? So where do they go to get it? They were going to the grocery store, right? Now they're on this craze that I want to buy from the farmer again. I want to know what's in my food. I want to talk to the guy that's raising my food that I'm putting in my family's stomach, right? And I think they're just coming back to the 30s and the 40s where everybody, was more about what am I eating? Where is it coming from? Versus I'm just going to go to the grocery store or Walmart and buy my chicken, right? So if you don't know, there's no grocery store and no Walmart, which all Walmarts are bigger than every standalone grocery store, right? Walmart never has more than a 24-hour allotment of food in their building. 24 hours. 24 hours. So if they can't get food within 24 hours, what's going to happen? Panic City, USA. Panic City, Poland. Panic City, Ireland. So that to me, that started to generate, okay, why don't I go? I'm getting into my later years. I don't want to continue building for the rest of my life. Maybe my kids will take the business over or something. So I'm going to go back to farming. 1, because I want to know where my food's coming from. 2, I want to be able to feed myself, cut down my phone bill my food bill. And I'd like to cut down my phone bill. I'd like to get rid of that damn thing. But anyways, sorry folks, but I want to be able to provide for those people who are conscious about what's going in their food, right? And want better quality food, and they want to support the farmers again. And that's becoming a huge trend here in the United States. And I know it is in other countries as well. I don't know by how much, but here it's huge. So with all that long-winded talk, my wife and I bought a 33-acre farm. 2 of our boys live on it. Both of them, one of them works for a golf course, but his wife works for us. The other one is a surveyor, but he also spends time working on the farm. And then we have a full-time hand. So we provide goats, goat meat, pig meat, cow meat, chickens, chicken eggs, quail meat. And there's probably turkeys. We sell a lot of turkey, all of that to the public. But the other thing I'm doing with that, no, hold on. I don't have a hat, but let's switch hats and go from the business person that I am. Now I'm going to go over to the real estate investment side of things, right? So I don't want to take 50,000 or 30,000 or whatever that number is going to be for anybody and put it into my farm on my own, right? So I have credibility, I have knowledge. So what I'm doing is I'm going, hey, Roy, I'm going to go out and I'm going to buy 6 cattle next week. Each cattle is, I'm just giving fixatious numbers. Each cattle is going to cost you $1,200 a head. Within 9 to 12 months, we're going to turn around and sell that cattle, process it out, sell it to somebody else, right, for food. And you're going to get somewhere between a 9 and a 12% return. I'm going to do the work. I'm going to do the feed. You're paying for the cow up front. and you're going to pay for half the feed up front. Okay. And so that's been a win-win. So now I'm doing it with pigs, cows, and goats.
And I suppose for those that don't know, because I've seen a lot of this, the feed that they were giving the chickens, the people then were like, they weren't laying the eggs. That was intentional as well. They were affecting the market. And plus, so many chicken farms, in massive farms, we're not talking small farms, we're talking the
Big ones.
big huge coops, all burned down. That's all orchestrated.
Yes, that is correct. That is correct. Yeah. And we talked about this a little bit before we got on air. So I'll just say it again. So in our area here where we're at in Horry County, spelled with an H, USDA just came out along with the county and said, okay, homesteaders. So, right. So you're in the north, you sell your $750,000 house. You got all this cash. You come down here with farming, homesteading in mind. You meet the requirements of your 5 acres, right? No more, just the 5 acres. And you're thinking, oh, I can have a horse. I can have my goats. I can have my pigs. I can have my cows. I can have whatever. Well, guess what? Counties are now going along and saying, they just said it here, you can no longer have pigs. And the cows will be next. That's what they're doing.
That's the way they do it. They pick them off slowly, like as if they went after everything, you'd all stick together. But it's like they go after a certain sector, and some people, that's their only bread and butter. And unfortunately, the guy has nothing to do with that, doesn't go to support them when they should all be together and standing up against it.
Right. So their excuse for that is they're saying, okay, from and I know you guys don't know this, but there's a road called the 90, right? So I'm off of 905, which is 5 miles out west of the ocean in Myrtle Beach, farther out than Route 90 is. So what they said is, if you're everything that's on 90 or the Waccamaw River on 90, east of that, no more farms. Zero, no more. So if you're existing, can't do anything to expand. And they're pushing people out, right? So now this podcast and the awakening show that we're doing, folks, is that the word awakening is perfect, right? We're not conspiracy people. Okay, maybe a little bit, but what we're trying to say is that just be awake. Wake up and just watch what's happening. Talk to your farmers, talk to your neighbors, talk to whoever you need to. And I'm not saying go out and be a crazy prepper. I'm just saying be prepared. That's all. Just be prepared. Oh, be awakened to what's going on around you.
And when you start eating organic, real organic, farmers' eggs, that's straight from the chicken, not the organic that you buy in the shop that they tell you there. The difference is unbelievable, because I get my eggs from the farmer, and it's unreal.
Yeah, we get new people here. They'll see our ad on Facebook of Chase Family Farms SC. For those who just want to look up, maybe follow us no matter where you are in the world. We do some crazy videos and all kinds of stuff, and watch little baby chicks get born and things like that. It's pretty cool. And we got 4 Great Pyrenees dogs that are just whacked in the head sometimes and do stupid stuff, and we're lucky enough to get them on film. But if you'd like, it's Chase Family Farm, South Carolina. It's just SC. But anyways, the quail eggs. You'll get people who come in here and I'll go, you ever had quail eggs before? Have you ever had pickled quail eggs? And they're like, no, I'm not trying those things. That's disgusting, And after a little bit, I give them a jar of some type of pickled, and they eat them, and they're like, these are the best things ever. And they're more healthier than anything else for you. They got more protein, more yolk in them, and they're like little gumdrops, man. You just pound them away instead of sitting there eating your milk duds every night and exploding, right? And sugar highs and everything else. Pop those little quail eggs in there and pickle them into any flavor that you want. And I get other customers. I had a guy called me the other night, or text me, and he said, this is the first time that I ever bought a pig off a farm. You knew that when I came to you. And I said, yeah. And he goes, the bacon, I'm being transparent, folks. The bacon was a little fatty, but everything else that we tried was amazing. The difference between what you provide and what a grocery store provides is like going to a high-end dinner place and getting the best of the best, right? And so once I explained to him, when you buy bacon from real bacon, when you buy real bacon, it's going to have a little bit more fat to it and less meat to it. And there's reasons for that. Go to the AI, GP, chat, whatever that thing is, and ask them, and they'll tell you all about it. But fattier bacon is actually not bad for you because you're not consuming tons and tons.
It's a good fat. Yeah, sometimes, yeah, same. It's like the skin on the chicken and everything. Sometimes people think that's bad. It's actually a good fit. Right? What about like growth hormones and antibiotics and stuff like that? Are you able to navigate to stay away from that, or do they push that you have to do that?
No, they're not. I'm not connected with the USDA. I use certain parts of the USDA for certain things. I go to their meetings just because I want to be in on the know, but I don't connect with them. So they don't have a whole lot of control over me. And I'm not that big, right? USDA gets involved when you're big, right? I'm not that big, right? So they're not really bothering me. But to answer your question is, no. So when we first started out, like last November with some baby chicks, we would use a medicated grower. We no longer do that. We no longer give shots. Now we will, on our goats, we will give a deworming shot if they need it, but we sell Kiko goats and South African Savannah goats. So we don't have normally that problem with parasites and worms and things like that. So we are 98% free of all of that stuff.
Yes. Basically, I had one of my guests on, Peter Wilson, and I wasn't aware of this, but in the UK, there's a wild herd of 400 cattle. And obviously, they're not getting injected or anything. And they're always saying badger problems and everything. And every time they test them, they have no diseases whatsoever.
Right.
So it looks like the jab is actually causing a lot of the problems that the animals are actually having.
Yeah. Yep. So the one shot we give the goats is once a year. It's called a CD&T shot. It doesn't really affect anything. It just, it's given to them after they're weaned from their mother. Right. So when babies are weaned, whether it's pigs, cows, it doesn't matter. They need to have something to supplement them for 1 or 2 times. It's like a booster. But it's not antibiotics. It's not steroids of any type or anything like that. It's a natural thing.
Okay. So,
yeah.
Listen, I think we'll have to do another show. What I'll do is I'll ask people to give me questions, because I know there's more and more people that are trying to get into this. There's the fair, so we can kind of maybe explain things maybe a bit more, but you might thoroughly enjoyed it, as always, every conversation we have, but you might let people know where they can find you, Syd.
So, Syd Chase Senior on Facebook. SydChase.com is our website. You can fill out, there's a tab in there that you can fill out. The page is up right behind me. You can, we'll help you build your legacy, get you started in the right direction. And the first time we talk, consultation is completely free. I don't charge you anything. Most of the time, I don't charge anybody anything anyways, because I want you to succeed. You know, I do enough to pay myself. I just want to help people at this point. But there is times that I do, but, and that's it really, just Facebook and that I haven't got my YouTube page set up yet. There's an old one out there, but they're terrible. And I do have an Instagram, but the Instagram is Venom the car. So and if you're into Mustangs and fast cars and things like that, then you can check out, We Are Venom GT21 on Instagram. It's actually me that does all the posting on that one. So, but hey, Julie, come here, please. The star of this whole power show, Roy, the woman of women, the leader of the pack, the whole 9 yards, the glue that keeps everything together. She's in her farm clothes because she's been baking all morning. But this is her. This is the superstar right here. I'm just the good-looking up front guy.
How are you doing, Roy?
I'm doing very well. No, we were just actually talking about you. So we're still with the podcast. We're telling everybody about how he succeeded and how you've helped him so much and how you're kind of working together. So I said it'd be nice to put the face on the camera as well and let the listeners see you.
Okay, time for you to go. I don't want her to get too much credit, Roy. Yeah, too much credit.
So what I'll do is I'll make sure now that all the links for the listeners, they'll be on both the audio and the video. And this is going out on the Awakening podcast and also the Speaking podcast, because Syd's a good friend of mine and different audience on the thing. But I think it's very relevant, everything we've discussed, because of the investing and on the farming. So you'll find everything on awakeningpodcast.org and speakingpodcast.com. Sure to give us a thumbs up, 5-star rate, and share with your friends. And comment on what we discussed. We'd like to hear your comments. And also, if you have any questions, next time I get Syd back, I'll make sure I'll cover. Until next week, take care. So I hope you enjoyed this week's episode. As mentioned at the start, you'll find my 6 podcasts on bio.link/podcaster. And also, if you'd like to start a podcast or do a podcasting tour, you'll find the information on that or on the QR code that's there. Be sure to give us a thumbs up, 5-star rating, and share with your friends, because it really helps. Until next week, take care.